Good morning. Welcome into Five Clubs here live on Golf Channel, also on PGA Tour Radio. That is Channel 92 on Sirius XM. Great to have you with us on this Wednesday morning. I am Gary Williams, and this program, it's always brought to you by Century Insurance. If you have business insurance needs, they will meet them. They are right by you, and they do great things in the game of golf. Their connection to the United States Golf Association, to the First Tee, and we're very proud to be aligned with them. Also proud to be aligned with these three North Carolina-based companies. Golf Pride, they've got an amazing design studio at their headquarters right at the entrance to Pinehurst number 8. And of course, when it comes to products, they have the best products, the best grips. That's why they're trusted by more than anybody else around the world. Peter Millar, this jacket, this tie, pocket square, it's all Peter Millar. Everything I wear head to toe, down to my brand new Odeon shoes, are Peter Millar. And speaking of Pinehurst, the cradle of American golf, and I walked out of the house this morning, oh my, little touch of fall in the air. And all those 10 golf courses and the cradle and all the restaurants and all the different places you can stay. It's why it is the cradle of American golf. You know, one note about Century, we got a ton we have to try to jam in here on what we call Tiny Friday here on a Wednesday, because it's our getaway day here on Five Clubs. Century, this was reported last night by Doug Ferguson, the tremendous writer for the Associated Press, that Kapalua is going to close the plantation course for 2 months. They've got a water issue there, and the golf course is not in good shape, and we just hope that everything can work itself out, that first event, the Century, which is the first event of the calendar year on the PGA Tour schedule, does not get affected by that. There are more important things in the world, certainly, but in our tiny little world here of golf, that is interesting and, you know, challenging news, certainly for the resort there. It's not just the plantation course, the bay course as well. So that is worth watching here over the next couple of months to see if they can get some agronomic improvements so that they can have that event there in January. 2 months, you think about it right now, now we're looking at, you know, November and December for 2 months of growing in grass and being ready to go, and they're going to have to know that certainly before, just a couple weeks before they would have the event. That is just one side note. There's a lot to try to talk about here because we've got some wonderful guests. Gabby Herzig, who's been a regular contributor here to Five Clubs. She was at the Tour Championship. She wrote a wonderful piece. I highly recommend reading it about Tommy Fleetwood, her viewpoint on him winning, but kind of in a bigger picture, Tommy Fleetwood, in terms of his value to professional golf and specifically the PGA Tour. She's going to be with us because all eyes are on Frisco, because at 11 a.m. Eastern time, 10 local there outside of Dallas, Keegan Bradley is going to go to the mic and he is going to announce his 6 picks. And is he going to say his own name? Is he going to say, I'm picking me? Or is he going to go full third person and say, rounding out my team is Keegan Bradley? He's very good. I trust him. I don't know. I think I know, but we will certainly talk about that with Gabby. And then at the bottom of the hour, you could argue there is nobody better at calling a game. And I could throw out any sport and you could say, yeah, I'll take him. Sean McDonough, because we are here at the beginning of the college football season. He's got Miami, Notre Dame, nice little opener. He calls the biggest games, and he has. He is somebody who called the World Series on CBS when he was in his early 30s, not to mention the NHL and college basketball. And oh, by the way, he has been a part of network broadcasts of all 4 major championships in the game of golf. He doesn't like golf. He loves it. So Sean McDonough at the bottom of the hour to talk about golf and how he uses golf as an agent for good, for him to give back to a number of things. One is intensely personal to him, and he's raised a ton of money doing it with the help of his sister and a lot of friends who you were familiar with. So looking forward to that conversation. One other note before we kind of dive into what I think was the most interesting thing that was announced yesterday. Congratulations to Craig Kessler of the LPGA. The announcement yesterday that they've got a new sponsorship for the Fortinet. The Fortinet is going to be what the Founders Cup is going to be aligned with. That was an event that was created back in 2011, and it was a challenging thing to kind of get off the ground, but it's an important event for the LPGA. It's had a nomadic existence in terms of where it's been played. It's going to go out to Menlo Park, California, and so Fortinet, appreciate them. They're going to get an increase in the purse, so that's the first big kind of move for Craig Kessler, the new commissioner of the LPGA. So let's get to what I thought was significant news any way that you slice it when it comes to Augusta National and the Masters tournament. And in this case, kind of in alignment with the Royal and Ancient, with the R&A, making an announcement yesterday when it comes to their exemption categories and invitations and how you can get those invitations, some being lost and some being gained. Let's start with the gains. This being announced yesterday that Augusta National, the Masters tournament, new pathways beginning in 2026. Now, the Scottish Open has obviously already been conducted. The guy who won that at the time was not going to be exempt into the Masters tournament. He was not already in a position of eligibility, and that is, of course, Chris Gotterup. The other 5 events, all national opens, all that will be contested between October and February at the beginning of 2026, the Spanish Open, Japan Open, Hong Kong Open, Australian Open, and the South African Open. This is clearly Augusta National's specific intent to show more representation potentially, but most specifically as far as those national opens. That is a huge boost for those events. Those are important events when it comes to the global footprint of elite professional golf. They also have great history. So to now have invitations to the Masters tournament, and that is also obviously in conjunction with what the R&A has done in terms of trying to identify ways to make sure that there is as much global representation, not only from the players who might be from other parts of the world. They might not be. They may be players that are already otherwise exempt or eligible. We don't know. But it is honoring those great championships. And you can say, wow, those did not have them already. They did not. One interesting note about that is that last year, not only the United States Golf Association, but the R&A created a potential, it wasn't a guaranteed, but a potential pathway for a LIV player to get entry into their major championships through their performance on LIV. Augusta National didn't create that pathway, but maybe they have ostensibly done that because there are a number of players who play on LIV that are going to play in those events that we just showed that now have an invitation on the line for the winner. And last year, in 2024, Joaquin Niemann won the Australian Open. And I think for all intents and purposes, the reason why he received a special invitation to play in the Masters, yes, he was very good on LIV, was because he won that Australian Open. And I think as a caveat to that is that Joaquin Niemann was also a past winner of the Latin America Amateur Championship. Now, the things that are lost with those additional invitations are things that are lost, and those are the fall events on the PGA Tour. And I don't think this is something that is completely accidental. One, the Masters tournament is the most intimate in terms of the size of the field. It rarely, if ever, gets to 100 players, where the other 3 majors are 156 players. Now, these winners last year of those events that are part of the fall schedule, none of them at the time were already eligible for the Masters tournament. All of the players who won last year in the fall did not have invitations to the Masters already in hand before the end of 2024, heading into this year, 2025. And half of those players who won those events were outside the top 100 in the official World Golf Rankings. It makes me think that this may be beginning of what could be a significant alteration to what the fall schedule on the PGA Tour looks like, because that's a huge additional carrot for players. Look, winning a golf tournament on the PGA Tour is the most important thing achieved by winning the aforementioned event that they're in. but knowing that that invitation is then in hand to the following spring's Masters tournament is a huge thing. That is now gone from those events, as the Masters tournaments are going to recognize and award those invitations to those national championships. And oh, by the way, so what you're taking away in the fall, you're replacing that, and that storyline will exist because, as I mentioned, all those events, with the exception of the Scottish Open, will be contested from October to the beginning of 2026 in February. All right. Quick transition. It's our final opportunity to open up the club on what we call Tiny Friday, a Wednesday here on 5 Clubs. Yes, it's just after 8 o'clock live here as we do the program right now. The club, we've done it all year. It's more of a hot index. It's kind of a mini algorithm of performance. So for the final time, we open up the club, and here is what we have for you. And you know, look, the winner of the Club 5 for the year is going to be the recipient of that walnut window pane Peter Millar jacket, which you can purchase right now at petermillar.com, part of the fall line. It will not have the 5 Clubs badge on it, but if you buy it and you want the badge, we're here to provide that. I'm not joking either. If you don't think that wouldn't be a topic of conversation at all your holiday parties, you'd be wrong. All right, let's get to the club. We start at number 5. This is a great story of perseverance and digging in. Alex Noren had basically 90% of his hamstring tendon torn away, and he was gone from professional golf for almost 8 months, and he came back, and he's done all the work, and he's a worker. And he won last week at the Betfred British Masters, and before that, he finished 7th. He finished 3rd. I don't think, even if he won the Omega Masters this week in Switzerland, if it would be enough to get a pick on the European Ryder Cup team. We're putting him in the club because he's done yeoman work. And oh, by the way, he also jumped up and played very well at the PGA Championship after having played virtually no golf at all at Quail Hollow. All right, at number 4, little slippage. I mean, look, he completed the career Grand Slam. He won the Players. He won at Pebble Beach. But the truth is, when it comes to Rory McIlroy, with the exception of the final 9 holes of the Scottish Open, name me another event where you thought he had a chance to win since winning the Masters. Look, the guy got to the summit of K2 and Mount Kilimanjaro simultaneously. It's understandable. But at Club 5, little slippage. So he goes down to number 4. At number 3, I would argue that Cam Young had as much pressure on him beyond winning the Wyndham Championship to stay inside the top 10, to get a pick from Keegan Bradley, which I think he's going to get just after 11 a.m. when those picks are announced. He won the Wyndham, then he was 5th at Memphis, 11th at the BMW, and then another top 5 at the Tour Championship. What more could the guy do? Oh, he was 4th at the Canadian Open and 4th at the U.S. Open. He's had a hell of a summer. All right, at number 2. He entered the club last week for the first time. Stay in the club until they say, Tommy, we're begging you to go home. He moves up to number 2, 164 starts. He wins the FedEx Cup. The guy kept knocking on the door after having the door slammed in his face repeatedly. What an amazing run to the finish and the final and winning the last event of the season. And then finally at number 1, he's getting the jacket. I mean, look, we've all known that he was going to get the jacket. Tommy Fleetwood ends the season with 14 straight top 8s, matched last time it was done by a guy named Hogan in the early 50s. He's going to win the Varden Trophy. He was first in scrambling. He is first in bounce back. He's first in strokes gained total. He played 19 events. His worst result, a tie for 25th. He had 9 top 5s. He won 5 times. The dominance of Scottie Scheffler cannot be overstated. There's nothing you can say. I'm going to say, just stop it, settle down. Don't settle down. When you're dominant in a sport that separates virtually everybody else by the slimmest of margins, he has separated himself, which is an amazing accomplishment. That is your final Club 5, and the walnut window pane jacket is headed to Dallas, Texas, 46 long. All right, when we come back, Gabby Herzig, her thoughts on Tommy and what Keegan will do and what it all means, and Sean McDonough from ABC and ESPN, one of the great play-by-play men of all time, and a golf nut job will join us as well. Great to have you with us here on a Wednesday. 5 Clubs Golf Channel and PGA Tour Radio Sirius XM's Channel 92. Back right after this. Welcome back in on this Wednesday edition of 5 Clubs Golf Channel and Channel 92 Sirius XM's PGA Tour Radio. In this segment brought to you by, yes, Pinehurst, the cradle of American golf. The new clubhouse at number 10 looks spectacular. It is always a good time, and there's always a good reason to book a trip to go to the cradle of American golf. All right, she's getting ready for a Mid-Am qualifier. She's going to go out and grind out in Minneapolis. Of course, she was at the Tour Championship. She wrote a wonderful piece about Tommy Fleetwood. A lot to get to with her, contributor here at 5 Clubs, and of course one of the great writers in golf for The Athletic. She is Gabby Herzig. Good morning. How you doing?
Good morning, Gary. I'm great. What an exciting day we have ahead of us in golf today.
You know, this is like the longest, most laborious process. But for whatever reason, I think this year in particular, because of Keegan, like I've never gotten tired of it. Like sometimes I'm like, okay, I don't want to have this conversation anymore, but actually I want to have the conversation one more time, and you and I are going to do that. But before we get to all of that, being at the Tour Championship and seeing Fleetwood cross the line and the ratings, as you know, highest non-rated major Sunday of the entire year. In writing that about Tommy, look, everybody knows he's delightful, but what do you think are the particular dynamics about him that have made him so endearing to everybody?
Absolutely. I think there are multiple things. I mean, first thing that comes to mind is just this arc of resilience that Tommy Fleetwood has had. It's a very human experience, what we watched play out this summer of him trying and trying and trying again and getting so close and coming up short and then doing it in this dramatic fashion at the end of the year at the Tour Championship for a $10 million winner's check. It all really came to a head so nicely. But also just the way that Tommy has been so graceful with the media this entire time. I mean, just a masterclass of post-round interviews from Tommy, especially when he could have easily walked off and not given interviews in some of those instances, and no one would have batted an eye because they just were that heartbreaking moments for him. But I think it really shows exactly what you get as a player when you open up to your audience and you show exactly what you're feeling in that moment and stay positive throughout the entire thing. You really are going to gain fans when you do that. And we saw that with Tommy Fleetwood. It showed in the ratings. It showed when we saw LeBron James live tweeting the golf tournament, Caitlin Clark, Tiger Woods chiming in there at the end. And it was really cool to see everyone come together around Tommy, and especially in person to see the fan reaction at East Lake.
This is a time where, with Bryson being over at Live and knowing how much traction he has with whether it's diehards or a younger audience, you look at the PGA Tour and it's Scottie and Rory, and then you're like, well, okay, let's look at everybody else. Is currently, right now, if you did kind of like your own index, is Tommy Fleetwood currently maybe the third most valuable asset to the Tour?
He's up there for sure, Gary. I think he's gained so many fans, like I said, over these past 2 months alone. But I'd argue that actually the asset that the PGA Tour has right now is these very natural storylines that kind of just write themselves about this very human element of trying and failing on a national stage, doing it again, failing again, and then finally getting over the edge. We saw it with Rory at the Masters this year. That arc obviously happened over a much longer period of time, but these are the types of storylines that you just can't manufacture. And I think the PGA Tour lends itself really well for those stories to just occur and happen over time, especially with it being a meritocracy, you know, a tour that you just have to play better and play well, and you will get up there and you will get rewarded for your accomplishments and your hard work. And we saw that with Tommy Fleetwood, and it could easily occur next summer with another player who wasn't on anyone's radar. It's just one of those really cool things about our sport. It's not, you know, there isn't that team element every week. There isn't something for fans to be emotionally invested in just because of their location or where they grew up or their family. So having these storylines that you can emotionally invest in because of how human they are, I think that's the PGA Tour's biggest asset right now.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point. Now, a lot of people would argue his deepest cut was simultaneous at the time where we all thought that Keegan had vaulted himself onto the American team at the Travelers. Now, here we sit, and he had the good week at the Tour Championship. What do you think would be the bigger story today? Him picking himself, which most people think he's going to do, or him saying, I'm just going to lead this team, and here are my 12? What would be the bigger story?
Gosh, they're both huge, honestly.
Yes.
That's why this day it feels so momentous, because on the one hand, if Keegan does pick himself, that would make history. And it would also put a lot of risk on the line for Keegan Bradley. If you go out there and you don't necessarily play as well as you wanted to, does Keegan Bradley sit himself? If he goes out there and performs excellently, he could become, even more of a hero than he already is in the eyes of, the New England golf community and the PGA Tour community in general. And then on the other hand, if he passes over himself, I think it would be probably a huge shock to a lot of people at this point, because he has proven that he has the skill to help Team USA at this point, especially with how he played at the Tour Championship, kind of capping it off there. It's going to be a crazy day, Gary. I really don't know what's going to happen, but if he does decide not to pick himself, I think he would be honestly going against a lot of what the inside circle of the US team is telling him and is in his ear about right now. And it also tells me that maybe a figure like Tiger Woods, advised that decision. I spoke to Keegan on Thursday at the Tour Championship, and he was very open about the fact that Tiger has been a guiding force throughout this whole process for him, and he's really thankful that he's been there through all the steps.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because we've associated Tiger with a lot of the chatter, even though he's been, kind of off the grid. People have made it clear, like, he's so plugged into all this. And no, he's not officially, a vice captain, but he's so immersed in team golf now at this stage of his life. It's interesting that he is still as plugged in with Keegan. So let me ask you, if he does pick himself, that's one less obviously player that he is going to have on his side. Who do you think, based on data, metrics, form, and all that, is going to feel the most squeezed if they get left off? Who would you start with?
The big name that sticks out to me right now is Ben Griffin. He's so high up there on the standings. He's number 9 right now. He's number 7 in data golf. He had just such an incredible stretch this summer. And I do think that if Ben Griffin is passed over, it'll be one of those scenarios where it's kind of the odd man out that's getting left out off the team, kind of like when Keegan Bradley was left off the team when Zach Johnson passed over him in the standings. So I think it would be quite surprising if a guy like Ben Griffin doesn't make the Ryder Cup team. He won twice this year. He really broke out on the scene. He was doing all sorts of stuff, late rounds that were, exhibiting that clutch gene that he just seems to have. But again, he's a new face. He hasn't contended for a Ryder Cup team before. He doesn't necessarily mesh with some of the players that are on this team and will be on the team for years to come. So I could see him being someone that is a surprise that gets left off the team today. But then again, it also could make sense just based on what Keegan Bradley has been prioritizing, even in telling us to the media what he thinks should be the qualities that would put you on this team, like a 2-year resume, performances in the majors, and just the experience of being on a Ryder Cup team before and handling that pressure.
Yeah, a lot of people have said that, well, come on, the back half of the team, they're not going to be counted on as much. I would contend that that's absolutely not true with the United States, because the front half, beyond Scottie, Xander Schauffele, because of the injury to start the year, it's been kind of sluggish. He never fired on all cylinders. And then you have some guys, and I have no problem with rookies. I talked about it yesterday, but Henley's not been in this environment before. Spahn has not been in this environment before. Even Bryson, I'm not saying there's uncertainty there. I think the back half is more important because of the way that those 6 automatics kind of look right now. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely, I agree. And I think that's why we're actually going to see Keegan Bradley take some of those guys that have been there before, have a demonstrated match play record like a Patrick Cantlay. How do you leave a guy like that off the team, especially with what he did in Rome, even with what he did at the President's Cup in Montreal, just displaying that ability to just make putts when you absolutely have to. And I think you have to fill the back half of the team with guys like that who can bring the continuity that Team Europe has so naturally this year. They're almost going to have an exact replica of the team from 2023. And I think as the U.S. captain, Keegan Bradley probably wants to channel a little bit of that energy on the U.S. side too. Yeah,
Gabby, last thing, speaking of same, Europe looks like truly the 12 last names will be the same. A substitute Erasmus in for a Nikolai. Do you think Monday, if something happens in Switzerland, who knows, Alex Norton wins 2 in a row, will he surprise us at all? Or are we getting the band back together basically in full?
I think we're getting the band back together. I mean, especially with a guy like Rasmus being in the team room in Rome in 2023. It's pretty much an exact replica of that team. But the one surprise I could see, I mean, how cool would it be for Nikolai to also make the team? And I could see potentially something like that occurring, especially because of how far Nikolai hits the ball. Both twins are some of the longest hitters on tour. And if you look at the course fit for Bethpage, it's pretty much a simple formula. You got to be one of the longest drivers on tour to succeed there. So I can see maybe, a guy like Matt Fitzpatrick really surged late this summer around the time of the Open, but he's ranked 86 in driving distance on the PGA Tour. Those are kinds of the things that I'm expecting Luke to take an extra peek at, but I do think that we're going to get that 12-man lineup that everyone's expecting, with John Rahm being there and some of the other guys that have really helped Europe.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just don't think Luke Donald's going to pass over fellow Brit and other elements with respect to Matt Fitzpatrick. You're locked in, 11 a.m. I know where you're going to be. Thank you as always. Good luck with the Mid-Am qualifier. Enjoyed time with your grandfather as you grind to get ready for that. Look forward to seeing you at Bethpage.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it.
All right, Gabby Herzig of The Athletic, New York Times, and we're very proud that she contributes here at 5 Clubs. We come back. One of the great broadcasters of all time, Sean McDonough. He loves the game of golf, and he's got Miami Notre Dame because college football is upon us. He joins me next. Back in this Wednesday edition of 5 Clubs Golf Channel. You can also listen, that is Channel 92, Sirius XM's PGA Tour Radio. This segment is brought to you by Peter Millar. The fall line is available for you. Anything you need on the course, off the course, they have you covered. They've been doing it better than anybody else for a quarter century. All right, joining me now, speaking of doing it better than anybody else, he's the best there is. A big game, his voice, nobody delivers like he does. And today, he is also a swag hound. If you give him Peter Millar gear, he'll wear it. He's been sitting by the phone. I have no reason why. He's got Miami Notre Dame this weekend. He is as good as it gets. He is Sean McDonough, my friend. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, Gary. I know you mentioned Miami Notre Dame, but we both know the real reason that you're having me on this golf program this morning. I have been sitting by the phone, very anxiously waiting for the call from Keegan Bradley. A little upset with you and Gabby that I was not mentioned among the possible captain's picks. I know Keegan is watching this. Before we announce the picks, a brief review of the resume. 2018 member champion, Boston Golf Club. You think it's a fluke? Nope. The next year, Woodland member guest with the great Christian Stone. This was with the late, great Rick Miller. Continuing along, 2020 net division champion, Boston Golf Club. Should have added something in 2023. We won our flight in the member guest at the Invitational Boston Golf Club. In the shootout, Drew Butler, avid watcher of this show, Ray Guy Award winner at the University of Georgia and former Arizona Cardinal, hit a terrible shot in the shootout, so I should have had the bigger trophy. Just to prove the net championship in 2024 wasn't a fluke. 2024 net champion, which now puts you in the conversation for biggest sandbagger in the club. And the daily double in 2024, the senior net club championship. When you win both net divisions, you are a sandbagger. So Keegan, if a net division breaks out, I'm probably going to get 12 aside off John Rahm. And the two-day member guest this year at BlackRock with the great Robbie McMenamin, six-time club champion, where Bill Belichick used to live, by the way, when he was here in New England. So the resume speaks for itself. I know John Rahm. I could intimidate him. We're both fellow members at Whisper Rock.
I've never seen more props. He called me Doug the only time he actually spoke to me, but I think we have a relationship. Patriotism, Boston Golf Club, incredible logo, the Sons of Liberty. We're in the cradle of liberty. Playing in a Folds of Honor event today at the Country Club, bringing back the echoes of 1999. With the great Curtis Strange, back-to-back, he's playing in the outing today. Even he said, winning both net championships in the same year is a bigger accomplishment than back-to-back U.S. Opens. So I rest my case, Keegan. You got my number. Wow. If that 8.7 index, which I looked up last night, was available, I can promise people you would be in consideration. Nobody can take those 10 shots. And I think that's
ultimately what's going to cost me, because I was down to a 7.1 after the BlackRock member. I shot a 76 in the final round. Just saying, you can look that up, Gary, being the journalist that you are. And then I think the pressure of the Ryder Cup swirl. You know, when they were talking about, is it me or Ben Griffin? Maverick McNeely might be in there. You know, it got to me lately, and I've fired a couple of 90s lately that didn't help. But hey, Colin Morikawa is not in great form right now either, and he's supposedly going to make the team. So, you know, let's look at the whole resume.
If anybody is worried that he won't be prepared for Notre Dame Miami, I promise you he will. He can compartmentalize all this stuff. All right, people are very aware.
You got my charts right here.
Oh, there, he's got his charts right there. Of course he does.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. People know if they, whether it's been on Gravy and the Sleaze, you have called golf in all four majors. You have been a part of all of the broadcasts for all the majors. And as somebody who is as good as anybody who's ever done this when it comes to football, basketball, hockey, you name it, what is it about that golf that is a particular broadcasting challenge? Because it is different.
Yeah, it's different. You know, I love it. It's so fun. You know, our ABC ESPN group was a blast to work with, and so was the CBS group back in the late 90s when I was there with those men and women. You know, the challenge of it is you really aren't watching the event right in front of you. You're basically calling it off a monitor. And most, as you know, Gary, now of broadcast golf, they have these towers where kind of all the whole announcers are sitting in the same place, and they're just calling it off monitors. So that's the biggest difference, I would think. And that, you know, most of it, or a lot of it at least, is on tape. You know, they can't show every important shot that's going on in the golf tournament because they're happening simultaneously in many or most situations. So, you know, there's the timing of it that I still don't know how the people in these trucks figure it out. So, you know, a lot of it is you're just regurgitating information that people are telling you in your ear, the yardage, the club selection, stuff like that.
Golf is a vehicle.
And you never know when they're going to come to you. I mean, the football game is right in front of you, and you're calling the play. You might be sitting there, and all of a sudden they're showing a shot that happened on your hole 10 minutes ago. Let's go to 16, and you're like, oh, that's me. Who is it? Oh, it's Davis Love. I remember that. He did that 10 minutes ago. So you have to be paying attention, too, which sometimes, as you know, my attention span is not that great.
No, it's actually quite good. I want to ask you about golf in a grander sense. You mentioned you're going to do this thing today. Folds of Honor now as a chapter in Boston. You'll be out there with a dear friend, Curtis Strange. You use golf for an agent for good. You have your father was your guiding light. He was your hero, and you have created and been responsible, you and your sister and a great staff, using golf on an annual basis to raise tons of money. And you did it recently again with your annual event. Why is golf such a great way to bring together people you love dearly to raise a ton of money?
Well, first of all, you know, there's an incredibly generous golf community. Yeah, I've been blessed to have friends like some of these pictures you're showing now. We have a celebrity golf classic here. We had it 3.5 weeks ago, as you mentioned, and I don't think there's a greater celebrity field in the country for one of these events. I mean, you'll continue to look at the pictures. Billy Andrade and Brad Faxon were really my two role models, you know, for decades down in southeastern Mass and Rhode Island. They've raised money for children's charities, over $30 million. So we borrowed their model, started a tournament about 20 years ago, used to donate it to children's charities, and now we give money to a fund we started in memory of my dad at Brigham and Women's Hospital here in Boston to support cardiac amyloidosis research. a rare heart condition. It's not as rare as they once thought. And we raise a ton of money because of these celebrities that you're seeing. People pay a lot of extra money to play with people like Charles Barkley, Norman Abdallah on our left. Oh, please don't show. If Keegan sees
look
this,
at that
I have
action.
no chance. Yeah, there's Brad Faxon, a little bit better. But, you know, it's the celeb Matt Ryan came. What an amazing, he actually probably could be on the Ryder team. He's a scratch or a +1. But, you know, as you can see by the pictures, we have a ton of fun. And the celebrities are critically important, as are all those sponsors. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's the people who pay the money to play at Boston Golf Club and to play with people like Charles Barkley and Bill Murray and Fred McGriff and Tom Glavine and all the amazing, I hate to mention all the names because I'm going to leave out a lot of incredible people. But it's a great day. We're up over $850,000 raised this year with money still coming in. And since 2018, when we started doing it for the hospital and for the cardiac amyloidosis, we're over $4 million. So it's life-saving work. You know, there's been a lot of great research that's happened in the last 7 years, in part because of the money that we raised. The doctors talk about that. So we want to prevent other families from going through what we went through. You know, it was devastating when we lost our dad. I know you idolized your dad just like I idolized mine. Yep. And if we can help other people not have that to happen to their families, then that's what it's all about.
No doubt about it. As somebody who has called you know, shots and passes and catches for the best players in all these various sports, you are really invested in golf, not only playing the game, the fellowship you get from watching it as well. I just wonder, what's your viewpoint of Scottie Scheffler? How captivating do you find him?
I find him captivating. You know, I guess I just appreciate the greatness. You know, I like watching players like him hit shots that nobody else can hit or very few other people can hit. So, you know, he might not be the most charismatic, but I think there's a little more personality in there than he sometimes gets credit for. I think he's awesome, you know, and what a gift golf is to all of us, right? I mean, some of my closest friends, most of my closest friends I met are people like you I met through golf, Gary. And so it's, you know, looking at those videos from Boston Golf Club, you know, those people paid money to play in a charity tournament at their own course. And then they bought all kinds of auction items. They didn't have to do that. They do it because it's great people. So I think that's the greatest benefit of golf, is just the relationships that you form and the friendships that you make and everything that goes with that.
You mentioned Whisper Rock. Who out there, as far as a guy who played another sport, I know that some of those guys can really play golf. Do you play golf with guys like that, or do you have your own groups?
Oh, no, I do play sometimes if they're nice enough to invite me. I mean, relative to the rest of Whisper Rock, I'm terrible. You know, like last I checked, the median handicap was 7. So I remember the first time I got in the member guest, Gary, I invited my buddy Matt Brophy from Boston Golf Club out. We were 10 handicaps. They put you in the flights like most places based on your combined handicap. So we get out there, they have the booklets on the table. Okay, you know, here's who's in your flight, here's where they're from, here's the schedule, what time you're teeing off, what hole. And I keep flipping the pages, and I thought, oh my God, we're not in the tournament. And then we were in the 16th flight out of 20 as 210 handicaps. So I don't get a lot of invitations to play. You know, some of the guys like Colt Knost will play with me every now and then, and Drew Stoltz. Yeah, but there's a lot of, you know, we have Ray Whitney, the great hockey player, spent time down your way. He's an excellent golfer, close to a scratch. Derek Anderson, DA, the quarterback, he's a good player. I'm going to be forgetting people now, and then they're going to get Mike Commodore, a longtime NHL player, play from time to time with him, great guy. But yeah, there's a lot of athletes out there, a lot of Charles Barkley's a member there. How about his game, by the way? People need to stop thinking like he can't play and he has the hitch and everything.
He's back from the dead.
Yeah, I played with him the Sunday, the day before our tournament. We got a little celebrity practice round, and you want him as your partner as a 10 handicap or whatever he says he is.
All right, let's get Sean McDonough out of here with 5 to go. Now, Sean has played most everywhere. Everywhere that's important in the world of golf. He's probably played golf there, but what is a place you have not been to that you want to get to? What's number 1 on the list? You have one?
Cyprus.
I'm surprised that you've not done.
Well, can I name drop?
Yes, very well.
One of my frequent playing companions is Vice President Dan Quayle. who's, we have some epic pillow fights at Whisper Rock. He's a great guy. One time a kid was caddying for him at Whisper Rock, and he said, Dan, why do they call you Veep? And he said, I was vice president. And the kid said, of what? But Vice President Quayle is a member at Cypress and has told me if I'd like to go sometime. So I'm anticipating going.
All right, Dan.
That was a good name drop, wasn't it?
No, that was excellent. Excellent use of the name drop.
I hope if Keegan's still watching, I'm friendly with former vice presidents of the United States.
Very good. All right, we had Joe Buck on the show, and he said that on the golf course, you turned him on to Yacht Rock Radio. Now that's kind of like all he listens to. What is the best thing Joe Buck does on the golf course?
Oh, wow. I would say entertain and mingle with the people in his group. You know, like he's come out to our charity thing, I think 3 years in a row. And the guys who played with him, my buddy Jeff Patterson, Andy Luther, I'm going to forget the other guys, and then they'll be mad at me. But John Mamry, they had so much fun with Joe. They went out and played in his tournament in St. Louis. Wow. And Joe said, you guys came all this way. I'm playing with you. So Joe's a great guy. And Yacht Rock Radio, the late, great Rick Miller, who was my partner in that 2018 member, we miss him for 100,000 reasons, but the biggest of which is no matter what song came on, you'd say, hey, Rick, who is that? You say, everyone knows that's Looking Glass. What's wrong with you? You know, so I'm trying to fill the void, trying to pay more attention.
All right, very quickly, your favorite football Saturday stadium is?
Well, the fabulous JMA Wireless Dome in Syracuse, New York, obviously.
Oh, my gosh.
I would say Saturday night at LSU is hard to beat.
All right, very good. All right, the athlete or broadcaster with the worst golf temper, who is it?
Ooh, boy, there's several. I'm going to make somebody mad, aren't I? Former Big East Commissioner Mike Tranghese.
Wow, that's a good one.
He was like a 3 handicap. He did a perfectly fine shot, and he'd just be yelling, Michael, what's wrong with you? You know, I'm sure there are better examples of that. Billis is pretty bad.
Yeah.
We got invited to play at Oakmont one time. Your boy Jay Billis is like helicoptering clubs. I'm like, Jay, I'd like to come back here. So stop being a slime bucket, you know?
All right, last one. The best item.
Biggest Vandy handicap in America, by the way, Jay Billis. Anyway, yes.
That's fair. Last one. Best item on the Boston Golf Club menu is?
Ooh. They have this new, crispy rice and tuna appetizer thing. That's fantastic. Chef Sean Moore does it. Everything is great, but that would be my new favorite.
All right, we end it. You mentioned us connecting through the game of golf. This will jog your memory bank. It was about 125 degrees on this particular day down there in South Carolina. Valley. Yes. You and I are not 5'1". We're not 5'1". We're close to 5'1", but the two guys between us, Billis and Brady, they're abnormally large people. That was a hell of a day.
Yeah, they are. And obviously the fit of the clothing is a little better thanks to Peter Millard these days. Yeah, I remember it was 104 and humid. And Brady's caddy, if you remember, went down for a couple of minutes. Thankfully, he rallied and was fine. But yeah, that was a fun time.
All right, my friend.
And Tom Brady Sr. was there. Your dad, the late, great Buck, was there. It was
absolutely
an awesome time.
All right, we got to jump. Listen, have a great call. Saturday night or Sunday night, you've got Miami, Notre Dame. And Keegan, call Sean. We got to jump.
Yeah,
there is Sean McDonough.
We're running out of time.
We are running out of time. We are truly running out of time. We got to go to a break. There is Sean McDonough.
Love
Miami,
you,
Notre Dame, Sunday night. Love you too, my friend. Back right after this. All right, back in. Last couple of minutes. Reminder again, 11 a.m. Eastern time. The picks, not only on Sirius XM, but of course right here on Golf Channel. This segment brought to you by Golf Pride. We got to get to our dogs. You people are sending them in. Dogs at 5clubsgolf.com. That's how we end every Wednesday with these amazing creatures and their connection to the game of golf. Here we go. Our dogs of the week. We start with Arnold Palmer. Doesn't that look like Arnie? Because it is. That is Scott Stevens' dog at Turkey Creek Golf Club in Alachua, Florida. That is Central Florida, North Central Florida. That is Barkley, Tim Walker's dog, who is the golf course superintendent at Leawood Golf Club in East Chester, New York, roaming the tee box. Next up, we have Luna, Bill Wiggins' dog at Saratoga Golf and Polo Club in Saratoga Springs, New York. Glorious sunset. Fantastic photo. Next is Nola, Mark Mancini's dog, rescued German Shepherd mix in Fayetteville, North Carolina at Devil's Ridge Golf Club in Holly Springs, North Carolina. And then finally, Queenie, Bobby Chester's dog at Eastland Green Golf Course in Clarksville, Tennessee. Great little pictures right there of all of our dogs. What is this? We have a bonus. Someone is saying in my ear, we have a bonus animal. Oh, no. No! This is Dogs of the Week. That is Cookie, Mary Wallace's dog at Holly Ridge Golf Course on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Hey, man, no cats. That will never, I promise you, ever happen again. God love you, Cookie. But this is about dogs. All right, the picks are coming up at 11 a.m. My intuition, just my gut. Keegan's going to pass on himself. I might be wrong. And if he does, he's going to say, I got my 12. I'll ride with those 12. Picks at 11 a.m., Sirius XM, and right here on Golf Channel. We'll see you Monday, folks.